And now, the session that we've all been waiting for. Please welcome with a big round of applause the keynote speaker for today, Dr. Pankaj Setia, Professor, Information Systems Area, Founding Chair, Center for Digital Transformation, Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. Dr. Pankaj, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Anand. Very pleased and glad to be here. The topic I've been decided to talk about today is digital transformation at the bottom of the pyramid. This is a topic that has intrigued me, and I have done some work in this area. And I today, through this keynote, want to implore all of you to think a bit more about this rather understudied domain of digital transformation. Characteristically, digital transformation is largely about the use of different computational algorithms. Some of them are very advanced, as is now seen in the form of artificial neural networks. There are other such algorithms, evolutionary algorithms, swarm intelligence, and many others that are shaping how technologies are evolving today. There are many different domains of lives these algorithms are touching. We're all aware of the online shopping and the type of recommendation agents and many other tools that we are now using to make our lives better. There is great use of these tools in almost every domain of our lives, ranging from education to sports to shopping, even play, video games, if not others. And so there are many other ways in which digital transformation is shaping our lives. And the heart of these is the advanced digital capabilities that are being built by these algorithms. The conversational agents, Apple's Siri is one example of such agent that we think about. But even beyond our day-to-day lives, there are many other advanced technologies such as artificial intelligence-based farm tillers that are used to, in the farming space, add a lot more computational capabilities to the work that is done by farmers. Many of these capabilities are so advanced, and the goal of the technologist is so advanced. I'll just quote Stephen Wolfram, who's a physicist and is very well known to be one of the founders of this approach of computational science. He talks, and I quote him, to say, we want to take all the systematic knowledge that's been accumulated in our civilization and make it computable, so that if there is a question that can in principle be answered by that knowledge, we can just compute the answer. The digital capabilities today are very advanced. All the examples and everything that I've said so far, I want to allude to this fact that the digital capabilities of the day are very advanced and are going to get even more advanced organically or exponentially as we go forward. As these touch all parts of our lives, the question or the background or the dynamic that I want you to think about today is, well, what are we going to do about the transformation of lives at the bottom of the pyramid? And there are many reasons for us to talk about. There are humanitarian reasons, there are just ethical reasons, there is just social etiquette that we need to think about people at the bottom of the pyramid. But there are also more pragmatic reasons. Societies that have not taken care of or not thought about such bottom of the pyramid people have seen large upheavals. Egypt was one example of such. And so what is important for us is to think about how does our digital capability inform or enhance the life well-being of the people at the bottom of the pyramid. Was a term that was originally mentioned or brought to attention by Professor C.K. Prahlad along with his co-authors Stuart Hart. And what it refers to is, it refers to a large number of population. So the numbers are huge, even though their income and their wealth may not be that large, their numbers in the human civilization are huge. And to just give you some indicators, there are different categorization in terms of their uh, income or their wealth, and almost relatively poor is one category, which is 61% of world population. So you see one of the major chunks of population which lives 4 billion people who live under or between 365 and $3,000 per year. It's typically the lower side of it is 365, which is $1 a day, about 70 rupees or 75 rupees if we are talking in terms of the Indian context. There is even another class of people which is categorized as very poor, 15% of world population or 1.2 billion people who survive on less than that amount, so less than 75 rupees a year as well. That is the bottom of the pyramid when we mention or when we discuss how to shape their lives and make their lives better. This is the population we are referring to. So as you would see, it is a global phenomena. It is not just India, and the kind of things we will talk about are relevant then more broadly to people beyond the boundaries of our own country. And Prahlad's work led to a shift in how the bottom of pyramid was viewed. The idea that it should be seen as a market which is yet untapped, and not as merely charity or not as something that is in the humanitarian domain, but as people who are worthy customers, suppliers, or more importantly, from what, as digital strategists and digital entrepreneurs, you all may think about is, can they be built as entrepreneurs, or can digital transformation support their entrepreneurial journeys, or we can cater to them as customers or suppliers of various products or services they may be able to provide. And it is in that sense that we would like to continue this vision of seeing people with rather less financial power as important participants in the market. So we continue to use that tradition. Now, although the philosophical idea, the dominant logic is what Professor Prahlad had referred to, this phenomena of looking at the bottom as market, although we have shifted the dominant logic, or we can say that we see them as an opportunity, there are still a lot of challenges that continue to persist. We cannot ignore, and this is United Nations finding, that these particular set of people face developmental barriers from really early childhood. Uh, their health may not be as good. They may have barriers in acquiring various skills, so they not be very skillful. They may have social barriers. They may have decision-making barriers. They may not trust a lot of things. They may not even see opportunity where a lot of people normally would. And so some of those barriers might uh, kind of thwart their progress, might make it harder for them to have a better life as well. Digital technologies and the bottom of pyramid, there is a genuine interaction, not from the days of contemporary technologies, but even from earlier technologies, some of which may not have been digital to begin with. Radio and TV are examples. And as these technologies come up, they enhance the reach, which means they connect more people. So if you think you can deliver a valuable thing through a radio or a TV program, it could be coaching for a particular domain, teaching them certain skills or things of that nature. Radio or TV certainly made the reach much greater, which means at a much cheaper cost, a lot many more people could be reached. This was less demanding in general in terms of the capabilities that were expected from the individual themselves at the bottom of the pyramid. However, when we talk about digital technologies of today, often these requires literacy, these requires ability to understand numbers, or ability to even understand the basic functioning of technologies. Uh, and that continues to pose some of the challenges, some of the barriers. And we did some work a couple of years ago, and This was in the domain of digital divide. As you know, that even technologies sometimes are not accessible to a large number of people who are at the bottom of the pyramid. And that can be a big inhibitor to their well-being and progress. And in that work, we found that there are 4 different types of barriers, largely, which are related to their technology use. And I want you to think about these barriers as you think about solutions to build for these people at the bottom of the pyramid. So if you want to take one thing out of this talk, think about ways that you can help overcome these barriers that I'm going to talk about. The first barrier I would mention is what is a mental barrier. And by that, what I mean is that a lot of time individuals have anxiety of technology. A lot of times they're not interested in using technology. They don't appreciate what the technology can mean and may even have a negative view of what technology does. They might see it as something that controls them, that rids them of the opportunity that they can potentially take. Now, all those fears exist even in the higher echelons. When we talk about privacy these days, we are hearing debates, related to some of the social media websites and so on. And there are a lot of concerns of different types at different levels in society, but especially at the bottom, the fears might be even more extreme, and they might see it as even more consequential for leading to bad effects in their lives. There is those mental aversion or mental barriers. There is just a material barrier, which means they may not have access to any of these technologies. Although we presume smartphones to be easily accessible, not everyone may be in a position to afford one as well. So there are barriers which are because of the access to the materials or actual technologies themselves. There is also a skills barrier. And by that, what I mean is that besides the general attitude, which is a mentality, which is a mental barrier, there is also an actual barrier that they may not have the education or the ability to use computer systems. One of the largest barrier in the Indian context, for example, is the lack of knowledge related to the English language. There are so many people taught in their own local languages or non-English languages, and it's hard for them to sometime even understand how technology works because of this limitation of not being familiar with English as a language. And then the final barrier that we found that is relevant is how do they think about leveraging or using this technology for their benefit. It could be an economic benefit that they get out of it if they are able to use it more effectively. It could be a social benefit that they could get out of it. So those are some of the barriers that I do want you as people who are working in this domain to think about. How will you be able to overcome some of these barriers for the bottom of the pyramid? And to give you some answers or to give you some indications of how this can be done, AI, artificial intelligence, is one very stark technology or a set of algorithms, if you may, that offers the capabilities and opportunities for such a growth, for such a holistic growth of the various people who are involved in this or who are at this bottom of the pyramid. There are some things that I would mention about AI, and then I'll give you some indicative ways that others have used this technology, and maybe you can think about using the same as well. So the first is that AI corresponds very naturally to the natural intelligence of human beings, which is some of the capabilities to listen, to comprehend, to see, analyze, deduce, are being replicated by a lot of technologies that are using AI-based algorithms to build digital technologies or digital capabilities. And so there is a natural alignment, there is a natural sync between the AI technologies and the natural capabilities or the natural intelligence of human beings. So artificial intelligence replicating the natural means that there is a very strong overlap in terms of what the two can do. And as you might have guessed so far, what I am underlining here is that when the humans lack certain capabilities, let us say to health wise or skill wise, AI can be a source to provide those capabilities to these humans. Now, where do they lack the most? Most at the bottom of the pyramid. And so, can we build capabilities that would augment or that would aid the natural intelligence of a lot of humans or individuals who find themselves at the bottom of the pyramid? Now that's the question, that I want you to think about and ponder after this keynote or after this talk is, well, how can we, through our technologies, aid and augment the natural abilities or the lack of natural abilities for a lot of these people who find themselves at the bottom of the pyramid? McKinsey did a study on this, and they find that AI can have a broader social impact and identify a few domains in which these are largely relevant. Now, these are by no means the domains you have to stick to, but it gives you an indication of how or where the work might be happening already. Having said that, there is no reason why you cannot think about your own way in which you would like to complement or create value for these people and their well-being at the bottom of the pyramid. Uh, I'll give you a few examples, and hopefully these will get you started to think about how this can be done in the domain of education, which is where a lot of bottom of the pyramid people suffer. And the large thing is they are deprived of education, or they're deprived of good quality education, to be appropriate and accurate. Where the modern contemporary education is that it tries to customize education to each and individual learner and their learning rates and their learning abilities or disabilities. People at the bottom of the pyramid may not even find quality educational institute. They may not be affordable for them, although there is a great demand, there is a great need, even at different levels of society, to give their children the best possible education. And the best usually means customizing it to their learning style and teaching them in a manner that the individual student gets to learn. And so there is this effort that I'm going to talk about, where a group of expert leaders were brought together. They studied the local curriculum and created very many mini lessons. They were going up to the highest competency, but at different levels of competency in math and English. Those are the basic skills that we wanted to sort of learn or teach. And they built this adaptive learning engine, which matches the learner to the right lesson that they would need at that time to acquire the competency at the level where they were currently. So you are able to, through this engine, find out what is the current competency of the child and able to then teach them or recommend to them the appropriate lesson that they should be listening to. Now, doing this sort of a customization, it's easier to do if you're using advanced AI-based algorithms, because you're able to understand each child's competency very quickly based on their behavior, based on their responses, or what they're getting right and what they're not getting right. And then trying to find out or match their progress and lead to performance improvement. It is easier to do using an AI-based system. A very intelligent teacher can do that as well, but access to such teachers is often not available for people who are at the bottom of the pyramid. So that's one way that AI can do. I'll give you one more or a couple more examples actually from the domain of agriculture. Harvesting, and this is you can look up if you want to get more information. Harvesting.co is one domain. And so the bigger gap here in this particular domain of AI or artificial intelligence use was, how do we fill the financing gap for smallholder farmers, where how do we make the access to funds and create a really a market solution which is customized to the farmer's performance, the idiosyncrasies of the farmland, and so on. And so the solution was to gather data by continuously remote monitoring the farmlands and use this data to find out what are the changes in vegetation or crop cover that are happening, giving any early warning system for repayment risk. If there is a chance that the crop may not come good, the data collected could advise there is a repayment risk happening here. And you can find out whether farmers were credit worthy or not. There are different ways to, the benefits of such a solution is that one, you engage the farmers, you're making farming more effective. And you're providing support through financial institutions. So even if there are companies that are operating, providing financing to these farmers, those companies become more viable. And in overall, you're building a solution which is very quick in responding, and not just the companies, but also farmers can respond very quickly in terms of assessing if there is any likely damage and making appropriate changes to their farming or vegetation covers. And so one of the examples of how that can happen is this company which or this effort which talks about this particular crop, cassava, which feeds about 500 million people in Africa. It's very tolerant to harsh weather, but not to diseases and pests, which can make it bad. And so how can you very quickly diagnose if there is going to be a concern to, let's say, this cassava crop? And the way to assess it, because it's a very slow change, so you won't detect it till actual damage has happened, but you can use some machine learning or AI based approaches to identify and quickly manage diseases where you can use various images which have been annotated. So you can say which leaf image of this plant looks like an early warning for a disease, and collect these images, annotate them, and then based on the real life data, can you say or very quickly identify an early stage warning of a pest or a disease that is likely to happen in the plant. So another example of how this can happen. And just give you one last example in terms of farmland management, especially in some countries where livestock is managed, it becomes hard to see how, for farmers to even know what livestock they have, what condition and all. And so the Jaguar Livestock app in this case provides an online interactive dashboard where you can monitor and see what different farm animals you have, and also provide customized text messages and calls in case they would like to give any recommendation about health or other variations they might have seen in these particular animals. What should a farmer do? And so, like I said, sometimes lack of information, lack of knowledge can be augmented, and as a result, you reduce the overhead cost or even operational headaches. So these are some of the examples that are possible in this. And I will end at this particular point in time and take your questions, but I do want you to think going forward. Think about how are you going to transform the bottom of the pyramid through the advanced technology capabilities. And if you're thinking of digital transformation, what is the digital transformation that you can bring about for the bottom of the pyramid in your domain of work? So with that, thank you so much, Anand, and the team here. I appreciate coming here, and I'll look forward to interacting with you through your questions and answers.